Members of the public will have 2 minutes to make their comment. Do we have anybody wishing to make a comment? I don't see anyone in the room.
There are no hands raised this time.
Okay, no, and any of our remote locations, anybody remotely looking to make a public comment? Good, okay. All right, then we will close public comment and move on to approval of the minutes. Let's see, do we have any questions or do we have a motion? Well, do we need to do public comment on the minutes?
We can do public comment on the minutes. There are no hands raised
Okay,
at this time.
great, then we'll close public comment. And do we have any comments or a motion on the table to approve the minutes?
So moved, Gonzalez.
Thank you.
I'm happy to second.
Second. Okay, great. Do we need to do a roll call on the minutes?
Yes, thank you. Alameda County.
Aye.
Pleasanton,
Aye.
Piedmont,
Aye.
Hayward,
Aye.
San Leandro.
Aye.
Minutes are approved.
Hello. Okay, great, thank you. The ayes have it, and we'll move on to our next item, which is the proposed JPA updates. And is this an information item?
Yes.
So maybe we should do public comment on that first.
Perhaps after the presentation.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, let's do a presentation first.
Turn that over to John Perkins to speak to that item.
Hi, everyone. Nice to speak to you. I'm moving. Wonderful, thank you. So the fundamental purpose here is to update the JPA in administrative ways to make sure it's matching the ways that we've been executing and to clarify some things to help us execute going forward. Adrian, could I ask you to scroll to the list of 5 items on this page? Maybe it's already visible and I just can't see. There we are. So as you see here, it is to clarify the requirements for establishing quorum, clarifying the voting shares formula that we've been using consistently, clarify the committee appointment process, align the JPA with our existing community advisory committee guide, and providing flexibility in the timing for the appointment of the chair and vice chair. Now, I'm happy to walk through the red lines in particular that were provided as well, but I think I should probably start and ask if there are any questions or any clarifications that I can provide to this group.
Do we have any remotely? Are there any questions before we get started?
None.
Okay,
In that case, Adrian, could I ask you to open the red lines and go to section 1.1.13, please? Great. None of this is going to come as a great surprise. This just sets forth clearly that the ex officio board member, the board member from the CAC, is a non-voting board member, as they are, and that their presence does not count towards establishing a quorum, and that they cannot make or second a motion. Once again, none of this changes the way we've been acting, but it does. It just adds clarity. And what I'll do is I'll keep moving forward, but please chime in if you have questions or points. Adrian, would you please go down to section 1.1.23? So this is an administrative cleanup. When the JPA was created, there was an initial format of determining annual use that per party, which would then determine the weighted vote share if that became the case. And there was one aspect for the first 2 years of the organization and then a different aspect thereafter. So certainly now that we're past the first 2 years, the first one is no longer relevant. And then the clarification we're also making here is that the amount of usage of load from the previous year that will be used to determine weighted voting, when weighted voting occurs, is the amount that the party has used, regardless of whether it was purchasing from PG&E or purchasing from AVA, which is a clarification that matches the way that we have been evaluating this every year since, I believe, 2018. Adrian, could I ask you to please scroll down to section 4.4?
Hey, John, can I just chime in with one really quick statement just on this voting shares formula piece?
Absolutely.
I wanted to just make sure it was known to our board that as we have expanded time and time and again in the past with Newark, Tracy, Pleasanton, the first time Stockton, and then Lathrop on different occasions, and then most recently with unincorporated San Joaquin County, we have deployed this methodology to update our load-based formula to reflect that. So this is just to align the JPA language with our practice that we brought in front of the board in many instances already with each of our expansionary scenarios. So just want to make sure that was clear.
Vice Chair, can I ask a follow-up
yeah,
question?
please.
Has the board ever utilized this methodology for a vote?
We have never utilized this methodology. It was an important concept in the creation of the JPA itself. Also a very important concept that the initial default vote was one city, one vote. But we always had this methodology there as an alternative if necessary. Never used it historically, but we have obviously continued to update it for different loads as we've added members year to year, so that we're prepared to use it if necessary, of course.
All right, any other questions on this one before we move forward?
No.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Adrian, would you please scroll to 4.4, quorum? Once again, another clarification, pointing out that quorum is based on the number of directors of the entire board, regardless of whether a party has appointed someone to that seat yet. So if the seat is available, it counts towards quorum. And then, Adrian, please, sections 4.8 and 4.9 down on page 10.
Wait, John, can I ask one quick question on that? I just want to, I know there was some technicality that the quorum had to be in the room, or is it just in the jurisdiction?
That's, hello, Executive Committee, nice to see you all. Interculta. That is a Brown Act issue around whether or not we can include folks for due cause who may be sick and at the last minute are letting me know that they could participate remotely, but they did not notice their remote locations. So the quorum in the room is for people to participate remotely without having noticed their remote locations on the agenda.
Okay. I know what you're saying.
The
Okay.
quorum for normal remote meeting where you have noticed your locations is quorum has to be in the jurisdiction.
Thank you for that clarification. All right. Thank you.
And by the way, there's a bill that's changed all those laws that we're going to be talking about for AVA. You're also going to be hearing about it most likely for your cities or counties that you work with as well. So stay tuned because that might all be getting updated as we reach the end of the year. I plan to bring an update to the board on the changes to the Brown Act around remote meetings.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, everyone. Adrian, could we go to section 4.8 and 4.9, please? Thank you. So 4.8, you'll see it's a slight clarification pointing out the chair shall appoint board members to committee assignments, which is the way the board has been performing. 4.9 is an update to the CAC configuration, providing a little bit more flexibility in terms of, in terms of aligning the CAC with the Community Advisory Committee guide that we've developed. I believe it's as you'll see, there's some specificity that's been made more flexible. One alternate from the pool of 3 alternates has been changed to an alternate may take the place. And so it's less prescriptive than it was before. It gives us a little more flexibility in terms of establishing the CAC.
Great. Any questions on that one?
Could I ask a question about, it says none of whom may be voting members. So I think the point being, if you are a director, you cannot be on the CAC? Correct. Thank you.
And I think, oh yes, Adrian, if you please go to 4.14 on page 12. So this provides a little bit more flexibility in the timing of establishing the chair and vice chair. It was a bit more prescriptive before, and really what this is intended to do is give the board more flexibility on the timing and process of establishing the chair and vice chair. And then also, in the event that there's a change in the timing, making it clear that whatever that change is and the impact it may cause on the term of an existing chair or vice chair, it does not impact their next term. So it would just be one term, even if it was a little bit longer because of a change in the timing of the seating of the chair or vice chair. And I believe that's everything. Let me just double check, but that is our proposed cleanup.
Thank you.
Well, can I make one other just quick comment from a procedural perspective? And Inder and John, please correct me if I've any details wrong, but this is the first preview of these changes with the executive committee. per our JPA, we are required to notify the cities of any anticipated change to the JPA. And so assuming that the XCOM is comfortable with these changes, we will follow this up with properly and formally notifying the city, and we will, I think, include board members in that notification itself. And then we will then bring this to the board, I would anticipate in December's full board meeting. We can't do it in November because we have a certain notification window. So December, we would bring that forward. We would potentially put it just on consent unless we were required to put it on a regular agenda for approval there if there's no controversy or need to discuss it further.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go to public comment first and just make sure, do we have anyone online?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Dohee Kim, recognized for 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Dohee and I'm with the local Clean Energy Alliance. I'm actually making a public comment because we're at the lobby of where the executive committee meeting is, and we'd like to make public comment in person. So if a staff member is able to support this request, we'd really appreciate it.
I'm contacting someone now.
Thank you.
Okay, we were clear. So did you want to wait to make your public comment in person?
Yes, we'd like to make our public comment in person, but we're at the lobby and we went through the security process, but we weren't able to go up.
Okay, and did you want to make it on this item or do you have a general public comment?
We did have a general public comment, but we weren't able to join in time.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's okay. We'll wait for you to come up.
Thanks so much.
We'll reopen public comment. Thank you. Anyone else online that doesn't intend to come up that wants to make a comment?
There are no other hands raised at this time.
Okay, so we'll just, I'm gonna go now to directors and we'll do comment on this and then reopen public comment. So I'm gonna close public comment for now. Let's see, I don't know who had your hands up first, but I'll start with Elisa, director.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Reading the language under section 4.14.1, the chair and vice chair. As I understand it, it's saying that the chair and vice chair shall hold office for 1 year and serve no more than 2 consecutive terms. However, the statement after that says that the chair or vice chair, total number of terms a director may serve as chair or vice chair is not limited. So it's a little bit confusing. First, we're saying 2 terms, and then we're saying it's not limited.
I can clarify that. So it's 2 consecutive terms. So for instance, if you became chair, you could be chair for a year, chair for the next year, but then you'd have to take a break before resuming that position again.
Got it. And that's interchangeable between chair and vice chair. You kind of rotate. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Thanks, Director Gonzalez.
There was a comment earlier, I think, just per the role of the CAC, that CAC does not count to quorum. I was wondering if in the spirit of thoroughness, we would want to include that in the quorum edits.
Oh, we can certainly do that.
If it has been a question, it might be useful to do that. I mean, to me, it's not a question, but then we talked about it, so therefore it must be a question in somebody's mind.
We did, but didn't we do it for, didn't we add that language, John, or sorry, we've been working with a couple of different versions, but wasn't there language that clarified that the chair of the CAC who serves as the ex officio member of the board does not count towards quorum and cannot make or second a motion?
So we did add that language in in a previous
But
section.
we could also add it again in the
Exactly.
section entitled quorum rather than the section entitled CAC chair ex officio member as well. So I'm fine with adding it in both places. I just wanted to clarify for the execcom that it is in there. We did add that.
If it's in there in the first section when you were scrolling through and I didn't see that language, because I remember we talked about it, I just didn't see the language. So if it's written, I am set. No need
It is
to.
expressly in there for that reason, yes.
That's
And
then we're
this-
set. Sorry.
As with a couple of these changes, these are things that I think are legally already true, just to be clear. And I have come to that conclusion previously when the question came up, and this is solely to clarify an issue that has come up a few times over the history of AVA to avoid having to talk about it again in the future.
Thank you. So I withdraw my request.
Thank you. Any other questions remotely? Any other questions in the room? Thank you.
I have a follow-up to Director Marquez, question about that section 4.14.1. The 2 consecutive term limits, is that a combination of chair and vice chair? Or is that the idea that you could be vice chair for 2 years and then chair for 2 years and then you have to take a break? Or is it 1 year vice chair, 1 year chair, then you take a break?
In either role, you could serve 2 consecutive terms. If you were to serve a term as chair and then a term as vice chair, they wouldn't count against your next opportunity to serve.
Sorry, I'm still confused.
So
Sorry,
what is-
let me restate that. I can do a better job of that.
Okay, thank you.
If you do 2 terms as chair, you can't be chair again right away. If you do 2 terms as vice chair, you can't be chair again. You can't be vice chair again right away. But you could be chair and then vice chair and then vice chair again. Does that make a bit more sense?
Okay.
So you just have to take a break in between your 2 years, right?
No, it sounds like you
Maybe
could
2
do 3 years as long as you're mixing the roles.
If you're mixing the roles, yes.
Or 4 years.
Yeah,
sorry.
4 years.
Distinct roles.
Yeah.
So
okay.
in essence, you could say the chair shall hold office for 1 year and serve no more than 2 consecutive terms.
Yeah.
However, they may, serve additional terms in the future.
Right, right.
And then a separate statement is the vice chair can also do 2 distinct roles, so.
I wonder, since I was confused and Director Marquez was also flagged that, if maybe we want to try to write it a little bit more
I think that's fair.
distinctly. Okay.
May I suggest that we say that the term shall be for 1 year, that you may serve consecutive terms, but no more than 2 years in the role, in the title. So just clarify term, and then the term is 1 year, but you can serve consecutive. So just break, I think it's just too long a sentence would be my suggestion.
Got it. And I'm making notes as we go. Thank you.
Is that enough direction, John?
That is enough direction. Yes, I will have it cleaned up by the board meeting.
Great. Any other questions from directors? No. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm gonna go, so maybe I can ask, so apologies to our public members that didn't get in on time. So we'll reopen public comment, but before I do that, I wanted to ask if anyone had a public comment on this item, on the JPA corrections.
Yes.
Okay, you do on that one.
And
Okay,
general public comment.
and I'll reopen that after this item,
Yeah.
if that's okay. Okay,
Mhm.
so let's go ahead and reopen public comment for this item, for the JPA update. So do we have any public comments in the room on that item?
Your lips, recognized for 2 minutes.
Over here, I guess, right? Is that set up for that? Yeah.
Sorry about getting here late. Jim Lutz, I'm on the CAC, but I'm not speaking for the CAC. My concern on the JPA update was it referenced the Community Advisory Committee guide, but the Community Advisory Committee guide is not posted anywhere on the website. So that seemed a bit strange. And I wanted to flag that, get that corrected.
Thank you. Okay, that's it. That's it on the counter. And then when we're done with public, I'll ask on that one.
That's
Any
what I
other?
remember.
Alright. Thank you.
Do I have to go over that?
You like to give it from there?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I wanted to review the document while I was in here, but I think I saw something that said something about changing the CAC's chair's ability to make motions. And I'm concerned about that. I hope that's not true. But I will be looking at that document again. And I just want to also say that I think it's really important that we have, that we value the Community Advisory Committee, because they are essentially volunteering to represent the community and inform the board on what the community wants to see out of the agency. And so overall, I want to just ensure that they are valued for the time that they put in, that they give to this agency and to the community. That's it.
All right, thank you. Anyone else on that, on this item? No, okay, so I'll close public comment again. And then if the directors don't mind, I'm gonna ask John if he has any comment about the guide being posted on online of the CAC, yeah, not posted on the website, maybe that's a hard question, I'm not sure. who
Yeah, I'll
asked.
just know, I don't see it in our key document section, so I'll definitely follow up with staff and make sure that, I guess I'm seeing from Manny, maybe you wanna comment?
Under planning documents,
Okay,
the CAC work plan. But that may be different from the guide.
That is different.
it
from
is,
the
yeah.
Okay.
The guide is a public document. It's been reviewed in various board meetings, so it is technically in the public domain, but certainly it is not our intention not to aggregate with other key documents, so we're certainly putting it there. And just as a flag to our board, that's something that we previewed some anticipated changes at a recent XCOM meeting. We will probably bring that forward in the coming month or two,
Okay.
also for review. So
Thank
there's
you.
gonna be an update there as well.
Okay, thanks. And yeah, remember, this is an informational item that will eventually go to the board as well. So there's time if we're gonna, make any changes or add it to the website. And then just on the question about the CC's ability to make motions, I think, again, remembering this is an informational item, so thanks for raising that. If there's, Inder, did you want to address that?
I would be happy to at the committee's pleasure. So this issue had come up in the past. Under Robert's rules, it is pretty clear that a non-voting member of a legislative body, and we do follow generally the Robert's rules parliamentary process, a non-voting member cannot make a motion or second a motion. This question has come up a number of times in the history of AVA, and each time I was asked to analyze it, I came to the same conclusion. So at no time has the CAC chair been able to make a motion or second a motion based on that analysis. So we are not changing anything, but we are clarifying something that has given rise to questions in the past. That was the intent of the revisions to the JPA language.
Thank you. Okay, great, thank you. So let's move on to our next item, which is the Smart Home Battery Program.
Great. Thanks very much. I'm JP Ross, Vice President of Local Development. I will be presenting on this meaty topic today. So Adrian, if we can go to slide 4 to start, so we can start moving through this.
Wait, can I pause you? I forgot.
yes.
How do you want, should we move forward with this item or go back to public comments? I forgot we were gonna do that. Does anyone care which way we do
Whatever
that?
you prefer.
All right, do you mind holding on one second to be able
Please,
to, okay, I apologize. I just want to make sure that the public got to be heard. So let's go ahead and reopen general public comment on non-agenda items. And yeah. Do we have any comments in the room?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Daniela. I'm with Local Clean Energy Alliance. Just wanted to speak on the Carefarer bill credit. We definitely appreciate AVA staff recommending an equal share of the bill credit for all Carefarer customers. And we want to emphasize the importance for Stockton and Lathrop customers, because even though they're newly integrated, they deserve an equal bill credit as well, especially considering right now energy is very expensive. And I think currently a lot of low-income families are without money for SNAP benefits as well. So I think, any help they can get is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Please, Jim.
This was, it was brought up or I happened across it because I was reading the JPA because there were changes on the JPA. And I noticed item 416, which is an operational audit, that AVA shall commission an independent agent to conduct and deliver at a public meeting of the board an evaluation of the performance of the CCA program relative to goals for renewable energy and carbon reductions. And it expands a little bit on that. But I'm not aware of any of these operational audits being delivered at a board meeting. And it's not a cost audit. You guys are excellent on cost audit. It's the operations audit on how much renewable energy and carbon reductions is AVA achieved. And it's supposed to be done at least once every 2 years. And I don't remember, I certainly haven't attended all meetings, but I don't remember seeing anything like that. And I think that it should be included.
All right, thank you. Are there any other public comments?
There are no hands raised at this time.
All right, thank you. I'll close public comment and just ask Marcia, do you have any comment about the operational audit
Yeah, we do an annual power content label audit that does go through all of our power contracts, and sets our carbon emissions level for Bright Choice and for Renewable 100s. We actually do that every year, specific to sort of looking at emissions reductions and power content and procurement of renewable energies.
So should operational audit, should that come in line with what we call a power content audit then in order to, I mean, to the. public
Yeah,
comment?
I obviously can't speak to the history of the JPA per se and why they use the word operational, but obviously that's a very broad,
Okay,
fairly vague term, but what we always looked at was the specificity that followed that, which was an explanation of verifying renewable energy purchases and emissions level. So
Okay.
for that component, we feel like we've absolutely satisfied that annually in a very formal regulatory process.
Okay.
If the board has an interest in something broader, operations could cover any number of things, so that's what we've always referenced there.
Okay, all right, thank you for that explanation. Okay, thank you. So so we're gonna close public comment. Let's move on to item number 5, the smart home battery program. Thank you.
Thank you. So, thanks, Adrian. Back to slide 4. So just a bit of background on this from a budgetary perspective, going back in the Wayback Machine. So the board authorized AVA to spend just under $15 million, which was part of a budget year surplus from fiscal year 23-24. That's now been allocated into the local development fund for the development of a solar and storage battery program. We have now been in development of that for a while and have named it Smart Home Battery. It's part of our VPP program, which I'll review in a second. And we have also authorized and executed a contract with Lunar Energy for management of our DERMS, our Distributed Energy Resource Management System, otherwise known as a virtual power plant, or VPP. So those are the two sources of funding that this program is being funded by. So we'll be talking today about the details of the program. Next slide, please. So we have been developing a virtual power plant. It's a fleet now of assets and programs. This describes a couple now. We have been operating our AVA Smart Home Charging Program. That's our EV residential charging program. And now this is, today we're talking about Smart Home Battery, which will be solar paired battery systems located on homes and community resilience hubs are the two categories of batteries that we'll be providing incentives for. And the resilience hubs, which we'll discuss, we will be providing incentives for the community hubs. And then we also have a notice of our critical municipal facilities fleet of assets that are now being deployed, and kind of they all roll up into our VPP, which is managed by Lunar as a contractor. So we have the opportunity to develop additional assets in the future, but right now we'll be talking today about Smart Home Battery. Next slide, please. So we have a few programmatic goals here. We're really trying to develop solar and storage assets, build additional renewable energy projects in AVA's service territory, and also manage those assets and think about how we can manage those assets as part of a virtual power plant to lower costs across all of our customers. We'll be talking about some of the cost impacts of these projects later. We have a few audiences. We have our residential customers, so homeowners, renters who live who live in single family residences, and then we also have a specific budget allocation for Carefera for low income customers, and then we have our resilience hubs. So those are the 3 program audiences that we'll be focusing on. And one of our really key outcomes of all of our VPP work is learning about these assets. There's a lot of new batteries coming into the grid. How can AVA, take advantage working with our customers to manage these assets to lower our procurement costs, increase grid stability while developing additional clean energy resources in our service territory. Next slide, please. So we have been doing a lot of feedback in the community for both the residential program and our resilience hub program. So on the residential side, we've talked a lot with HALSA, industry groups, solar installers to understand, how we should best implement this program. And, one of the key learnings there is we really want to be providing ongoing incentives that keep customers participating in the program, and customers want optionality in how they build out these assets on their homes. For Resilience Hubs, we've been doing community engagement work through Emerald Cities Collaborative. That's one of our community investment grant recipients. They've been helping to identify some lessons learned and opportunities in the Resilience Hub space. Done a case study on some Resilience Hubs and Resilience Hub models, and also did some definitional and eligibility workshops with the communities. And really, key learning here is Resilience Hubs are a pretty broad definition category. There's some operating models of Resilience Hubs, and it's a pretty complicated space. We want to be having a pretty wide definition right now about what types of hubs can come into our program, because it's a pretty complicated space, and we need to be pretty open in that. And we'll talk about the definition and eligibility criteria of our Resilience Hubs later on. Next slide, please. So from a budgetary perspective and a number of customers perspective, the $15 million is going to be split across those three categories. We will be providing both upfront incentives and ongoing incentives for ongoing participation in our VPP. And so the incentives are really split between the upfront and ongoing. Overall, we expect to see about 21 megawatts of new battery capacity installed in Avis service territory based on the budget that's been allocated. I will say the number of customers is kind of dependent on the budget and the size of systems and the allocation of battery to the program. So these numbers are kind of highly forecasted. For Resilience Hubs, these are modeled on a maximum battery size that we have capped our Resilience Hub incentive at. We expect that there will be more than 6 Resilience Hubs. That's kind of the minimum of the program, because we've instituted a cap. We see in the market, as we've evaluated the types of solar and battery projects that are going on to churches and other community sites, we think that there's going to be a good number of smaller systems that are coming into this program as well. So that's kind of the minimum number for visibility purposes. Next, 2 slides down, please. So we'll go into some eligibility criteria and incentive levels now. For residential customers, we have both our market rate residential customers and our Carefera customers. So eligibility, people need to be an AVA customer, needs to be a new solar and storage installation or a retrofit of a battery to an existing solar system. We have some dual enrollment limitations on other programs, so they can only be enrolled in our ongoing program. Participation in our VPP will be over 5 years, and we have an enrollment period over 5 years, but the enrollment period is kind of limited by the budget. As we approach the budgeted allocation, that enrollment period might be less than that based on the budget we have allocated. And then batteries are going to be required to dispatch either into DSGS, Demand Side Generation Grid Services Program, DSGS, operated by the CEC, or we can enroll them into our into load modification, which is a way to reduce our resource adequacy. So again, we're figuring out how we can commoditize some of the dispatch from these battery systems. And then from an incentive level, the incentive level for market rate residential customers will be $90 per nominated kilowatt hour of battery, and then $3 per kilowatt hour per month for ongoing participation over 5 years. And the Carefera rate is quite a bit higher than that. It's $500 per kilowatt hour of nominated capacity, and that's actually stackable with SGIP. So there's additional funds that could be accessed by low-income customers to cover the cost of their battery. Next slide, please. This is a brief calculation, and in sum total, we're expecting to pay about $2,000 in upfront and ongoing incentives for a market rate residential customer, and significantly higher than that, about $16,000 when you include SGIP, for a Carefera customer. One key point of this program is customers will nominate the portion of their battery that they want to participate in the AVA VPP. So that means if they have a 10 kilowatt hour battery, they can nominate 80% of that. In this example, 8 kilowatt hours for ongoing participation in our VPP. If they want to nominate less than that, because they want to keep more of the battery for their own purposes, they're able to do that. So we're giving customers a little bit of choice in how much of the battery they want to kind of allocate to ongoing VPP operations in AVA's VPP. That was one of the pieces that came out of customer feedback, was giving customers choice about that, and also paying for energy delivered versus just the size of the battery. If you're just paying for the whole thing, customer may or may not want to kind of allocate that full amount to the program. So that's for incentive example for residential and low-income Carefera customers. If we go to the next slide, we'll talk about our Resilience Hub definition. So we have been working to define resilience hubs for the purposes of participation in AVA's Smart Home Battery Program, and we do have some technical assistance for resilience hubs also. So we developed this definition, we took it out, and Emerald Cities Collaborative through one of our community investment grants took this out. We did get community input to broaden the definition and add some other language to the definition. As we reviewed that internally, we decided that the definition that we had brought out was really important to be specific to how resilience hubs are going to be operating in this program. So we want to be clear about that resilience hubs are required to have clean energy services, that they're required to be open to the public. And we also want to have those community resilience hubs being spaces that people are gathering on a frequent basis outside of resilience events. So the definition that we are proposing for this program, italicized here, resilience hubs are physical community serving facilities that provide essential services, distribute critical resources during emergencies, and integrate clean energy solutions to maintain operation during power outages. They also serve as year-round community spaces where local residents regularly gather and access everyday services. Our intention here was to define resilience hubs for the purposes of AVA's incentive program and technical assistance program, and not define resilience hubs writ large. There are other definitions in the country, in the area for broader resilience hub purposes, but this purpose is for the participation in our program. Next slide, please. So we will have resilience hub eligibility requirements for receiving technical assistance and the incentive that this program will be providing. So the eligibility criteria are listed here. Some of this have come out of those public engagement forums around being open to the public during emergencies, community serving or public benefit entities. They will be on non-residential customers. So we're thinking about churches or community centers or libraries, but not on individuals' homes. And then there will be a requirement within the Resilience Hub incentive that at least one critical service to the public will need to be provided. And we have a list of those that a potential Resilience Hub can provide. And we recognize there may be other services on an as-needed basis that AVA could approve if a Resilience Hub comes through and is proposing a service not on this list. But these are the eligibility requirements for receiving first technical assistance. A subset of these will be required for technical assistance, and then all of these eligibility requirements will be necessary in order to receive an incentive. Next slide. Oh, actually, one other thing to call out. We are specifying that a resilience hub should be able to provide backup for 8 hours a day over a 3-day period. So this kind of speaks to what we've heard from community feedback sessions of like a 72-hour kind of availability period during blackouts. So not just short blackouts, but multi-day outages, you know, in an emergency or a PSPS event. When we modeled kind of 72-hour continuous backup power, that's a pretty high bar. And so we are wanting to keep multi-day availability, but you know, leave it up to the potential resilience hub to identify when are those services provided and that they would be open for 8 hours a day, you know, over a 3-day period. Gives people a place to come back to. That longevity felt important. Next slide, please. So from a Resilience Hub incentive calculation perspective, here's another example, but for Resilience Hub. So we are proposing $1,220 per kilowatt hour of nameplate capacity. Our initial proposal was $400 a kilowatt hour. So we've actually tripled that upfront incentive in response to feedback about kind of the complexity, the cost, and the need for a higher incentive in order to build out these types of projects. So we've increased the upfront incentive significantly. We've also actually increased the ongoing incentive. We were initially looking at $2 a kilowatt hour. We've increased that to $3 a kilowatt hour. So we're creating a more kind of robust incentive for these sites. We've done a pretty significant amount of analysis on different types of resilience hubs that we see possibilities for. We've also run all of our CMF sites through a modeling exercise using this incentive to estimate the payback time of potential resilience hubs. We see that our incentive would enable about a 5 to 15 year payback based on the site complexity, the level of complexity of the resilience hub, which from Ava's perspective, we weren't coming to this expecting to pay all of the money and make it a free resilience hub, but to pay a significant amount to make it like a financially viable investment for a nonprofit or a community resilience hub to invest in. So those are some of the outcomes that we were looking for in our incentive setting process. Next slide, please. So we are kind of, looking to gather information from our community and the types of sites that start to apply for Resilience Hub incentives, recognizing this is a complicated space and resilience hubs are very custom types of projects. So, and these are also projects that take a long time to develop and take a lot of community investment in the site, the idea, fundraising, getting alliance on, aligned on what the expectations are for these resilience hubs. So we are planning to basically develop a wait list process so that potential resilience hubs can come in and get on a wait list and know that they can have an incentive once they've installed their system. And in recognition of kind of, we want to be gathering as many potential sites into the process as possible, that we want to enable kind of a prioritization evaluation process back to the board and the community of the types of sites that we are bringing in. So this program for Resilience Hubs has about 3.75. It's 25% of the budget allocated to this work, allocated to this incentive bucket. So that's $3.75 million in total. What we would like to do is after we get our first $1 million worth of incentives on the wait list, bring that back to the board and for a community kind of engagement process and look at the types of sites that are being that are getting through our process and reserving funds. And then we might want to reprioritize the types of sites that we're seeing. We don't want all the sites to be in one city block. We also don't know the types of sites that are coming in or that will be coming in. So we would come back and evaluate, are we getting sufficient resilience services? Is our minimum of one resilience service sufficient? Do we want a wider geographic distribution? Do we need more sites or want more sites in disadvantaged communities or serving disadvantaged communities? Are we seeing a big concentration of resilience hubs and we want more, distribution? Or, are we seeing, nonprofit ownership or for-profit ownership of these types of sites? So those are some, example reprioritizations that we might do. Our intent is, let's get some sites into this process, let's get some reservations in place and see what types of sites are actually reserving funds, and then we may institute a further prioritization on the types of sites that we'd be moving through our technical assistance process and giving putting on the wait list to give incentives to. It's very early days, so we want to create a process where we can take as many possible sites as possible and then reprioritize once we've got some more learnings. We go to slide 18. So did want to provide a little bit of a overarching financial kind of story and background for our smart home battery program. So if you may recall that we have gone through some regulatory transitions from net metering 2.0 to smart home billing plan. Wanted to provide you all a bit of an understanding of what's been the end customer impact of those changes. So the bar chart on the left, bottom left, shows for a sample customer that we ran some average customer segments and load profiles through a market rate tool called Energy Toolbase to just provide some high level kind of bill savings numbers. The bar on the left is what a solar only customer would have seen in for 5 years of bill savings with solar, standalone solar. When we move to smart home billing, the change from net metering 2.0 to 3.0, there's a significant reduction in bill savings. That was basically why you all came to us and said, there's this transition happening. We have a budget surplus. We want to create a solar and battery program to recover some of those lost savings. And so what we've modeled here is a customer on solar billing plan with a solar and battery only is the third bar chart. And the fourth bar chart is a customer on solar billing plan plus the smart home battery incentive. And so what we're seeing is that actually recovers a significant amount of kind of lost savings from net metering 2.0 from a customer's perspective. Now, a customer also has to spend $10,000, $15,000 on a battery, right? This is one side of the equation, the bill savings part. But we are kind of recovering some of that lost savings, which feeds back to some of the original intent of the board and allocating those dollars to AVA to create a program like this. And we've been working to make sure that it integrates well with our virtual power plant objectives. So on the resilience side, if we go to the next slide, we are providing significant incentives to resilience hubs. When we ran the modeling, as I said, the incentives are expected to bring the payback into the kind of the 5 to 15 year period. And there is also significant other resilience value to communities of resilience hubs, which is why it's been a substantial portion of the work that we've been doing to allow for that customer segment to build out these types of projects. Next slide, please. Let's see. So there's another element to make sure that everyone is aware of. So there is a revenue impact to AVA of solar paired batteries. So as we collect revenue from customers and as customers install solar and then batteries, we've done a pretty significant analysis. Actually, we can stay on this slide. We've done a significant analysis to evaluate the revenue impacts to AVA of solar and batteries. It's important to recognize that batteries actually have a larger impact to AVA revenue than solar only. And that's really because, what we are allowing with a battery that's installed is they are, collecting energy that's generated during the middle of the day, which is when rates are low. They're storing that energy in the battery and then they're exporting it to the grid when rates are high. That's great for a customer. We're helping to recover some of the lost bill savings, but the fact that they are offsetting much higher cost energy in the afternoons, that is higher revenue energy and higher margin energy for AVA. So there is a cost impact of these types of programs, and we are working to mitigate that through our VPP participation. But it's important to recognize that programs like this have a cost. We are not recovering for that cost through the $15 million budget, but it is lost lost revenue to Ava. We go to the next slide, please. So this is that explained in a little bit more detail. The chart on the left here is comparing a smart home battery or a customer with solar and a battery and a customer with solar and battery in the smart home battery program to a standalone solar customer. And you can actually see that a customer with a battery costs Ava in lost revenue an additional $313 a year in lost revenue collected by Ava because of that shifting of when customers are consuming and using power. There's also through our smart home battery program, we've added an export bonus credit for exports to the grid. We do reduce our day ahead energy costs by an amount, and we can increase that a little bit by participation in the VPP program. And we have some reduced renewable energy credit procurement costs because our overall load is a little lower. But you can see that in column A, installing a battery does increase or does reduce revenue collected by Ava by about $230 a year per customer. We can recover a decent amount of that from participation in DSGS. The DSGS budget is not fully built out for the next 5 years, so we're not forecasting we'll get DSGS for the entire term of the program. But we can recover some of these lost revenues through DSGS, such that we can turn the table a little bit on the revenue impacts of customers in smart home battery. But important to know, installing a battery on a solar system does impact Ava's revenues. We expect the revenue loss from this program over 5 years to be about $2.5 million. So if we go to slide 24, please. So from a timing perspective, we are kind of completing our development efforts on the software backend and vendor management elements of our program launch. We expect to launch our smart home battery program in the end of the first quarter, early second quarter of 2026. So in the March timeline, and we'll phase that out between our residential customers, and then the resilience hubs will come on a little bit after that as we continue to define the rules of the resilience hub program. So that's the timing of this activity. And that is the end of our presentation.
Thank you. That was a lot of information. Thank you.
Yeah, it's fairly meaty.
Yeah, it really is. No, thank you. I really appreciate it. So if director's okay, before we go to comments, I'll go to public comment. Great. Adrian, if we can have public comment on this item.
Okay.
Do we have any public comments?
Yes.
I'll go to the. Hello again, Daniela with Local Clean Energy Alliance. I first just want to say thank you to Ava Community Energy for the work you've done on the solar and battery storage incentive program. It's very important to us and our partners that Ava is providing this incentive, especially during a time when funding is being slated on state level and federal level as well. We love connecting with our communities. The development of the community definition of Resilience Hub was done so through listening sessions and workshops that we conducted earlier this year. And we will continue to incorporate our definition in our outreach in addition to Ava's definition of resilience hubs, because community input is critical for accessibility and participation to these programs. We'd like to emphasize the importance of community sites such as community-based organizations, nonprofit organizations, and trusted sites to be the key pilot sites in receiving these incentives. Resilience hubs should be nonprofit organizations that provide services and resources to the community. Based on community feedback, we'd like for there to be clarity on whether sites eligible for the critical municipal facilities program will be eligible for this program as well. Again, I'd like to emphasize the importance of this incentive program and how important it is for our communities. It's a big deal for us to connect with the community and do outreach, especially for this program. So thank you again to Ava. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm gonna start using recording now.
Dodie can. Recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Adrian, and just wanted to thank Board Member Julie Roche for also opening up the public comment and helping to facilitate us to come in as part of the public. But just also wanted to express appreciation. My name is Do-hee Kim, and I'm with the local Clean Energy Alliance. We've been working with Allison and other staff members here. Also, just with our community outreach for this Resilience Hub program. First, I'd like to recommend that it would be helpful to the public to have some clarity around the Smart Home Battery Program kind of naming of the Resilience Hub program. I think because the Resilience Hub program is subsumed under Smart Home Battery Program, and with this focus on residential, it'd be helpful to kind of clarify to the public as we continue to do outreach that there's this Community Resilience Hub component explicitly. And also wanted to share that as we've been doing community outreach with a lot of community resilience hubs that are non-residential, non-municipal, which is our focus, we've noticed that there are a lot of concerns with smaller sites to medium sites that might not have the benefit of an 80% cost coverage with the offered upfront and ongoing incentive, that there are a lot of capital costs to consider for Resilience Hub efforts, from operations to staffing. And so I've actually attended a listening session with Extreme Heat Climate Resilience Planning, and there are state grant programs like the CRC with Strategic Growth Council, EHCRP, and they encourage local agencies and CBOs to work together. So I really encourage Ava to consider creative funding that's available. EHCRP is specifically offering $22 million across the state. Also want to uplift the local development business plan goals of working with local labor unions like the critical municipal facilities, and also to clarify the distinction with CMF and this Resilience Hub community. So really appreciate your efforts here.
Thank you.
All right, Jessica Tovar,
Yeah, thank you.
recognized for 2 minutes.
Jessica Tovar, Local Clean Energy Alliance, and I did have a question about the division of like the budget, noting the pie chart, the colorful pie chart that's in the document. We were curious why it wasn't considered maybe to split the monies like 3 ways between the residential, the Resilience Hub, and the Karen Farah. And then somebody brilliant in the community was like, why don't you split it half Resilience Hub and the other half residential, since Karen Fair customers are residential. I wholly agree too, in terms of the name. I think it was kind of, maybe it should be Smart Home System or something, or smart, sorry, not the home, but system, or Smart Home and Hub program or something like that, something to consider, just so that it's clear what this is about. It kind of threw us off too in the name, the item and the agenda. Yeah, so I'm just curious about the budget, how that was split up. And then I do want to name that, community organizations are also addressing the need for resources for running the operations of a Resilience Hub. And that is a climate and energy issue that we have brought up in the past. And we do want to work with you to address that issue as well, because there's these outside grant opportunities that many of which I've heard from small organizations just like ours, that the application processes are beyond them. And so this agency could play a role in being kind of like an administrator of those grants. And we would appreciate that, because that would help a lot of the smaller hub efforts get the resources that they need. But also would love to talk to you about creating a program that would actually also fund hubs. My time is up, but clean power to the people. Thank you to both staff and Emerald Cities Collaborative for their work.
Thank you.
We have hands raised in the attendee area.
Okay, for public comment?
Yes.
Okay.
Bradley Cleveland, you recognized for 2 minutes.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good, thank you. Bradley Cleveland, I'm an Oakland resident and a consultant with the IBEW, Electrical Workers Union, Local 595, and their partners. the Electrical Contractors Association. And I had to say, I'm really happy to see this project moving forward. We watched the Critical Municipal Facilities Program move forward. Really happy that AVA's investing in resilience. But I find that the information, there's a lot of information to absorb, and I've been researching this this subject for a while, and I assume the board is I might be feeling a little overwhelmed. I believe that last year, during the discussion of the Community Resilience Hub, the board had suggested holding some sort of workshop or public hearing on resilience hubs before actually adopting a program. And I wonder if, in fact, well, I asked that the board to consider having some sort of public hearing at an AVA board meeting where there can be a larger discussion of the resilience hubs and the options available to AVA, looking at some of the research that Emerald Cities has put together, what NV5 has learned while it's been doing the early technical assistance, look at the readiness tool created by Emerald Cities. I also think at this point, AVA might have learned something from the critical municipal facilities programs that would be helpful regarding some of the costs and the sizing of these systems. So I do ask that the board hold a larger, have a meeting where you can bring up these things rather than just having a single agenda item. A couple specific comments. I'd like to see more of an equity priority focused on vulnerable communities and families most at risk. Prioritize local development, local contractors and workforce.
Thank you. There are no further comments, hands raised at this time.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for their comments. I think JP's listening and writing down all of this, all of the comments, because there will be, it sounds like there are going to be opportunities in the future to talk about, especially the Resilience Hub issue. And I guess I would like to just start out, because we did talk about agendizing like a work session on defining Resilience Hubs and what it really meant, because we have sort of gone back and forth on this. So just want to ask the CEO about that.
Yeah, I think this is part of that process, is to have a public meeting and get feedback from the board. We can certainly spend more time doing a special meeting or more robust meetings on this topic. I think we're just very cautious given the number of agenda topics that we've been bringing forward to the board. So I think this was anticipated to be part of that engagement process and see if we want to invest more time
further.
and see what topics we're going to cover there.
Okay, well, let's go back to the directors now and get comments, and then, yeah, maybe we can talk about that. Comments from directors. Director Gonzalez.
So 2 or 3 comments. For Resilience Hub, I was struggling a bit because I could see a broad set of organizations that could be defined as a Resilience Hub. And the number of necessary conditions being only one of those choices being a place to charge your phone, seemed very generous. When I think of Resilience Hubs, I think of places that are more focused on providing multiplicity of those services, especially during a shutdown. So just, I don't know, I tighten up that criteria because I was just starting to imagine folks that could apply that I don't think would fit the genuine definition of Resilience Hub, at least as I think about it. The second clarification I think would be useful, maybe a little bit of elaboration. I know there was a discussion of critical municipal facilities before. I think I heard you say that those facilities would be eligible to the extent that they serve a Resilience Hub function. And if so, just, I think you mentioned it. Maybe you can give me a head nod or a thumbs up. Is that, would they be eligible? No. Okay. So I think that then beginning to explore the why not, because those centers, like a senior center that do serve this function of resilience in the community, they are opened up in cases of emergencies. Why have they become ineligible? If you'd like to, that's fine.
Yeah, so when I say no, I mean the 8 projects that AVA is currently building across 4 cities, those sites would not be eligible for an incentive.
Thank you for the
other types of city sites would be eligible for an incentive. So maybe didn't understand the question, so I gave you the wrong answer.
So I'll give you, let me just make it very specific. City of San Leandro chose not to participate, given the economics and the et cetera. Given this new round and this new structure, would the senior center marina committee, would one of those be eligible to apply? And I think the
Yes.
answer is yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you. But I think just being very clear with that is useful. And then the last piece is I do agree with one of our public commenters that I knew walking into this meeting that this was going to be dense and thorough and meaty and whatever term you want to use for. It's like, whoa, my head hurts a little bit. Finding some way to tell this story in a simpler way, I think would be very useful for when we go to the board. I didn't take notes as far as how to make it simpler. I will try to give that some thought. So that I'm not just complaining without offering solutions, but the reaction that I had is like, wow, my head hurts a little bit. So I'll just kind of end right there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank
of the
you.
meeting.
Thank you. Director Marquez?
Thank you, and thank you to the city of Hayward for having all this amazing candy on site. Sorry. How to walk away. I just came back from a meeting from San Jose and can tell you I don't miss that commute. So I will just preface my comments with just thank you. I know that the community has been asking for this for such a long time. So thank you, JP and team, for the tremendous work, especially the community engagement component. Just really excited that we were able to do that. So just want to highlight and give you my appreciation. It is a lot to process. Just hearing some of the comments from the public. I believe I was one of the people that pitched kind of the work session idea, just because I think anything that is in high demand, something that's been discussed and tracked for multiple years, I just think that kind of deserves a little bit more time and attention. And the fact that we do have so many new board members, just giving everyone a chance to be brought up to speed. So I was hoping we could do like a work session. I hear you that this takes that place, but it's still a lot of information to digest. Also, what's resonating with me is wanting to be inclusive and clear on what the program offers to the community. So having the word home in it just does sound very focused on one of the populations and not all. I know we're trying to obviously address the needs of residential, non-residential community, but having the word home in there just kind of, it does feel a little bit more, it feels alienating to me. So I definitely like the idea of adding hub to it or revisiting the name altogether. So I would prefer a work session, something that is a little bit more simplified and maybe framing the questions like, do we support this versus that versus, including the comments that we've received from the public, framing it in a way that we could give that direction. I hear Director Gonzalez's comment about why couldn't municipalities participate, but I think we already did that route. So this was our option to expand this to the broader community. So not necessarily open to that. But again, I think with so many of us and so many different opinions, I think we just need a little bit more framing for this discussion to give specific feedback. Those are my early comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Good, Director Anderson.
Great. I had a couple questions and then some comments. Given the 5-year time commitment that's anticipated for residential participants, is this available to renters as well as homeowners? So you just have to get a commitment that if it's a renter that it would be a 5-year lease, or how would that work?
Well, similar to how battery, like a solar system, if a renter is going to install a solar system on the house, they're going to have the owner of the home agree to that. The renter in many cases is paying the utility bill, and it's that ongoing, that's the account holder then who would be participating in the ongoing smart home battery participation agreement. So you'd get the homeowner would say, yeah, you can install that on my roof, and then somebody's going to pay for it, upfront or ongoing, and then the ongoing payments are going to go to the renter or the person who owns who's on the bill.
Okay. Okay.
I do think it's important to point out the ongoing engagement aspects and involvement in the program are more carrot than stick. So that's one of the reasons why we've sized it in a way to try to give meaningful ongoing incentives to keep people in the program for 5 years, as opposed to saying, if you're not engaged, then we're gonna somehow go and attract the additional incentive dollars that we've helped to provide. And so that is a component for how we've designed it, and certainly an important aspect of sort of enforcement if we're asking them to stay with the virtual power plant sort of aspects of it.
And then it looks like we have I'm looking at slide 24, which has the kind of timeline. And it looks like we're kind of right up against a residential launch in Q1. So I definitely hear my fellow board members and wanting more information and sharing more information with our current board for whom this might be kind of new conceptually. But I don't want to slow down the rollout. So I guess it's kind of finding that medium. Defer to staff on how to do that.
Thank you. Anyone else online? Nope. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I wrote that down too, that like, I don't want to, you had said, we'll sort of collect some of the applications, then come back together and discuss that. And I worry, like, I don't want this to take too long because the funding was allocated in 2024. We're trying to roll out in the beginning of 2026. I want to make sure we're moving forward so people can, access these incentives. But maybe, talking about sort of doing this in a different discussion, you said we will at some point come back together when there are some applications. Maybe that is a time for us to discuss, some of the comments like Dr. Gonzalez comment about, because I wrote it down too, that like they only need to provide one service, a charging service or whatever it is. Maybe that's the time that we can sort of address those kind of comments to sort of say, maybe they need 2 or 3, right? Like everyone should offer charging services, but then they also have to offer 2 or 3 more. Maybe that would be a way to do it, to couple it with that discussion so that we're not creating, if we're going to agendize that anyway at some point.
Yeah, so we can go back to that slide, but one of the kind of prioritization questions in there was like the type and robustness of the resilience services provided, right? Like if we're getting a bunch of applications and they're not providing a diversity of resilience services, then that would be something that we would discuss and then say, do we want to add other resilience services as a necessity, or do they need to have 2 or 2 types of resilience services provided? Like that's something that we would then bring back and discuss. Is there a sufficiency of resilience that these initial sites are providing? That's the intent there.
Okay.
To be able to come back to the board and discuss that.
Okay.
So I think that's slide 14.
Sorry.
So maybe that can be a moment where we can talk just a little bit deeper about both the incentives plus the,
One more down, Adrian.
that's what you wanted to see,
no,
right?
no.
I think that was the
Was it?
one.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
14 is the one
yeah,
with
yeah.
the list. Yeah.
The provide, the critical service. So,
Mhm.
yeah, so maybe that just is our opportunity to have a different discussion about resilience hubs, because, go ahead.
Can I just share that? I want to try to break apart this smart home program in a few ways. The program inception sort of came out of when we were switching from NEM 2.0 to the solar building tariff process, and how that was going to sort of hurt the future progression of behind the meter residential solar. And so that was the impetus for this program. And initially, the impetus of that $50 million funding was for that purpose, is really thinking about residential solar. I think as we expanded it to cover resilience hubs, understanding the importance of there, we realized there's some similarities in there in terms of the integration of the battery, the management of the battery, and the management of the program as a whole. So I think this is in part to ensure that we're getting the approval from the board on sort of program design in terms of how we've lined up the upfront incentives versus the ongoing incentives,
Okay, that's helpful.
and the budgetary allotment across residential, care and fair residential, and resilience hubs.
Okay.
And what's really important from a timing perspective is there's a lot of complexity to this in terms of managing the VPP aspects. This is one of the largest VPP programs that will have been launched to date, probably in the nation. So the work that we've done to work with integrators and installers to educate on this program, because unfortunately they're covering all the state of California and we are one territory. So it takes a lot to get them up to speed and provide feedback on this. So I think in order to stick with sort of a late winter, spring-ish timeframe launch, we are just really pushing forward on this quickly.
Okay.
There's elements on the residential solar piece I would say we would like to continue forward on in order not to continue to push that behind, because we are gonna lose the residential tax incentive. We have already shifted from NEM 2.0 soil building tariff. So we want to just try to do that as expeditiously as possible. I think some of the definitional stuff around resilience hubs, we are happy to take more time and engage with the board if we want to do workshops on that, or we can also just take this feedback back and try to provide some more feedback depending on how we want to approach the discussion piece. But maybe my ask is for the November board purposes, we'd like to be able to solidify the way we're approaching mostly the residential design elements, which is both the care fair and the non-care firm pieces, because there's a lot of background work we have to do with industry to make that work. And then on the resilience hub, we may be able to take a little bit more time and certainly have to take feedback from the board. If you want to take more time, we can. And yes, it will delay things, or we can get out there and then iterate, because I think there's a lot of uncertainty as to how that program will launch and what sites will be eligible, what they're seeking, so that we can be appropriately responsive and also adapt. Is there anything I got wrong there in terms of urgency?
I think that's completely accurate. I think I would add 2 points to that. One, Adrian, if we can just, go to slide 16. I did want to just speak to the Director Roche, as you were saying, yeah, what we have proposed here is we would get some number of initial applicants to our incentive program and bring that list back for discussion after we get the first $1 million of incentives. And, resilience services provided, that line number 1 really speaks to, like, if we get, $1 million worth of cell phone charging sites in, a concentrated area, we may come back and say, well, that's not really meeting a lot of our objectives, geographic distribution, service and DAX, just cell phone services seems to be insufficient. We need to change the eligibility criteria. But until we start to get some actual traction and understand what types of resilience hubs are actually coming to the table and say, we want to get built, it's a little early to be restrictive right now. We're trying, so that's the purpose of coming back to you all with like some actual evidence of the types of sites that are coming through and applying for our incentive. So
yeah, if that provides the opportunity without us slowing down the process, because I hear you, and definitely with the Somewhere at Home battery program, I think we need to just go forward with the timeline you have presented. Then you're right, that does seem to be the time we want to be able to say, well, not quite that, maybe more like this, and based on the applications that you get back.
Yeah.
Is that okay with the board?
So my only issue is, I mean, I would hate to have a lot of nonprofits and others spend a lot of time on an application that is just for cell phone charging when the intention is to have more than just cell phone charging. So, because I think we're gonna have a lot of unhappy customers. So I don't wanna, I guess I'm trying to figure out like, I mean, staff said 1 for a reason, but should it be 2 of the following list? Or, I mean, I don't wanna micromanage, but it just seems like 1, you might get a lot of applications that aren't what we're looking for.
yeah, I think, part of the work that we're doing with Emerald Cities Collaborative, LCEA is helping them out, is like developing the list of potential sites that are coming into this program. And those are very much through a community engagement process of what is the community looking for in the form of services. And so we felt like it wasn't our position to define that and overly restrict it. I think, if there's, we want the community to say,
This is what we want.
This is what we want, and this is what we need. And then we're gonna evaluate that resilience plan and the solar and storage backup that's necessary to make that operational for 3 days over 8 hours a day. And that all has to fit together to say, this is a resilience hub. So it's not, we didn't feel like it was our position to like say, well, that's not enough for you, community X.
Yeah.
That doesn't meet our
Got it.
objectives, right? Like it feels like this is, that's how we're approaching this, is it has to come from the community. Like, what are the services they want? What do they need in an emergency?
And maybe I can make a suggestion, because I'm conscious of time, and we
I
do have
know,
another
we're
item.
about
No, that makes a ton of sense. Thank you.
I think we've gotten really good feedback here, and I think at least we have enough information to provide an update for the November board. And if that still leads to more discussion, I think that's okay, but we can at least update some elements here based on the feedback. And one of those elements may be, we will take into account the number of services without saying it has to be more than 1, less than 1. We're gonna be able to evaluate and prioritize based off, the set of services and the value that you're sort of providing, things like that. So we can take that back and provide a proposal on how we want to move forward there.
All right, that's helpful. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion. Any last questions on this one? No, okay. All right, thank you, everyone. Yeah, let's thank you both for that those comments. And let's close this item and move on to the customer program strategic roadmap. I'm sorry, Annie, that you're chunking it for time, but just so you
It
know.
is very, very brief.
Okay,
So, hi,
great.
everyone.
Okay.
Annie Henderson, Chief Customer Officer. Just coming back with a topic, very brief topic that we've brought before in both July and September to the ExecCom and to the CAC, letting you know what the status is of moving forward with the customer programs roadmap. So we had approved in the current fiscal year budget, $500,000 for a consultant, maybe some flex room there based on other sort of future programs based on the roadmap. But we did go out to RFP. Sorry, I'm not following my own memo here. So the background there is that we have about a fund of roughly $100 million. We're doing a lot of things out in the community. We just heard a lot about smart home battery and the resilience hub efforts. We also have our Ava Bike Electric, smart home charging, and Ava Charge. And so those programs, they run for a set period of time, some a little bit longer than others, but we get to a point where, okay, what are we doing next? And we want to be very intentional and thoughtful about that. And so we want to go out and solicit some additional support, market assessment, stakeholder outreach to help develop that framework that will inform what our future customer programs look like. So we went out to RFP at the beginning of September. That was out on the market for about 3 weeks. We held a webinar. We followed everything as we had previously proposed in the timeline. And so we did get back. We got 7 responses. 5 were conforming. 2 were more sort of individual service offers. They didn't address the entire scope of the RFP that was requested. And so after that, in mid-October, we brought in the 3. Well, first we did an internal review. There were 5 staff members who reviewed the proposals based on the criteria that were indicated in the RFP. We scored those. We brought in the top 3 bidders, or the top 3 proposal responses, did interviews, and then asked for some follow-up information. We're still sort of dialing in some of the final information now, but wanted to share with you some of the key things that we were looking at. So the key information in the responses is bulleted out here, but I'm going to just focus in, because of time, on stakeholder engagement, because there's a methodology to how you do a market assessment, how you put together the portfolio, and there was some distinction between the groups. Some just brought different levels of expertise or maybe scope in which they were able to pull from in doing that assessment. But I think there was a greater level of variability around the stakeholder engagement. So if you just look at it in terms of hours, there was one that had over 1,400 hours dedicated to stakeholder engagement, one that had 115 hours dedicated to stakeholder engagement. So it was a really broad range, but it was very useful for us to see sort of what is the breadth of recommendations made by groups. And all of the proposers brought in a local firm, in some cases more than one, who were largely focused on that task of the stakeholder engagement. So they all had engagement throughout the process, starting early, but the number of touch points and sort of the duration varied. The channels varied, anything from sort of targeted interviews to broad multilingual surveys of just general customers. The reach was a little different as well, given those types of different channels. And so in the end, what we sort of felt as staff, it was good to see these different proposals brought to the table, was we feel like, of course, the bare minimum is going to be engagement with staff, board, CAC, targeted stakeholder interviews and or focus groups, and then a broader customer survey, so that we are sort of getting our finger on the pulse of what customers are looking for, and then making certain that there was a clear methodology and approach to taking that feedback and really applying it in a clear strategic way to developing this roadmap. And that to me is like the real crux of it, right? How do you take in all this information and then make it actionable in a way that's going to help us look forward, plan for the greatest impact, resource appropriately, and then best coordinate with the number of stakeholders, including your own cities, in delivering on decarbonization projects. So we are working on our board documents right now, and we'll be bringing a recommendation to the full board this month.
November. Thank you. That was quick. You're right. Which I appreciate. Any public comments on this item?
Dohee Kim, recognized for 2 minutes.
Just want to quickly appreciate, Annie, thank you so much for sharing the emphasis on stakeholder engagement. I just wanted to share from just the public perspective, again, Dohi from Local Clean Energy Alliance, that, you know, as part of the public, I truly believe the Community Advisory Committee is a conduit for public input and public engagement. So I really hope that the AVA Board of Directors and staff members continue to foster this ecosystem and workflow with the CAC and consider their just ad hoc subcommittee work with the larger local development business plan, but also with the larger goal of decarbonization with municipals. We definitely appreciate that effort. And in terms of stakeholder engagement as well, we truly believe that having kind of the proposed work sessions, as you suggested, for resilience hubs, like we understand that with net energy metering and other regulatory pressures from CPUC, time is of essence, but also having deliberate, conscious decision-making, having a real assessment of impact on community in addition to market assessments would just be helpful in a holistic, successful program. So really just appreciate what Ava's doing. Just want to emphasize that CAC is a conduit for public engagement, public just thought process, and concretizing kind of what the public needs are through these customer programs. So really appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Anyone else online?
Are there no hands raised? Jim Lutz?
Tim.
No, Jim Lutz is a member of the Community Advisory Committee, but I'm speaking for myself. We've had several discussions asking to be involved in the early evaluation and review of the proposals so that the input from the CAC, the advisory committee, the advice from the advisory committee is taken before the proposals are winnowed down to just one. So there's more input and outside additional perspectives than just staff. And I wanted to bring that to the board members' attention.
Thank you. Thank you. No other public comments?
Are there no hands raised at this time?
Okay, we'll close public comment and go to directors. Director Balch.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm pretty excited about that we're doing this. I think it's actually timely in light of where we're going. So I appreciate staff doing it. One thing I'll just mention, I mean, I don't know what method it comes from, whether it's CAC, I know they've got their subcommittees or not, but price or valuation or cost of energy overall continues to be obviously a paramount concern. And I'm sure it will come up through the listening session. I'm not trying to preordain how any of this will come up, but I have been getting feedback from my constituents that it is difficult for them to understand the technical terms and find solutions long term. And I know we try to demystify it and become a repository of information, but even just in light of where we're at, we're I would consider knowledgeable people in this room and on this call and in this body, but I think we're losing some of the public who doesn't have the time to know or research some of this. So how do we demystify it? So I'm kind of priming the pump for what I hope may come out of this process a bit, but I think I know we have different ways that we reach out, that we get information to input in, but I think that interestingly enough, the e-bike program that we talked about at the last board meeting and comments still seems to be the number one thing that people identify as AVA and ACTC, and just seems like out of the ballpark win for us. And so if we can kind of think about how to actually deliver services to the people we're, the constituents we each have. I'm just worried that, I'm hoping this process will elevate those. I'm looking at it on my left, so I don't know why I'm pointing at my screen, but we need to be careful that we still can deliver kind of on the basic levels of people. And so I'm just wanting to make sure, I read the background here, Annie, and I appreciate what you've talked about and what it will do. But we need to be open that there's some of these programs that are going to not necessarily fit everyone's needs, right? And what programs can we continue to keep an ear out for how to be effective in it? But I'll just continue to say price, cost of energy, cost of delivery continues to be a paramount concern. And the e-bike program seems like I didn't expect it to be so successful or so valued by my community, but it is extremely valued by my community. And frankly, my local bike shop says it's definitely saved their business in a slower economic time. And I think people don't realize that community connection that Ava is doing, even if we're not able to generate a resilience hub. So I'm trying to just say, I'm really hoping this will generate a lot of different input methods. And I just want to make sure it does. And we kind of connect from that. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online?
Sure, I'll jump in. I concur with Member Balch's comments. We do need to simplify things, kind of have, infographics, just simplified explanations just to bring the public up to speed and just continue to tell our story. What is the added value that Ava's providing to our community? So we're doing great work, but we just need to continue to highlight that. And the community engagement component is going to be paramount as we continue to expand, obviously outside of Alameda County now. So just want to make sure we're bringing everyone along, but really appreciate everyone's comments and focus on this. And then also thank you, Chair, for reopening public comment, just flagging our space is beautiful, but it isn't the easiest place to access. So just really appreciate your flexibility, and maybe we could, I know when we go to meetings, there's staff down in the lobby kind of waiting. So maybe we could just revisit that as well, just to increase participation in these meetings as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Director Gonzalez, no? All right, thank you. Yeah, I want to thank you, Annie, for your presentation, and just at least pleased that most of the RFPs came back with an understanding that we had a priority of community engagement and stakeholder and input. So it sounds like that is going to be part of the process anyway, which I know, to the community members' point that, we want to have them engage early and often. And so I think that's part of what you're looking at. So thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, and with no other questions on this item, we can close this item and move to community member and staff announcements. Any staff announcements? Nope. Any committee member announcements or future agenda items?
You done did well today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Well, with that, we can adjourn at 4:34. Thank you. Wait, do I gavel to the end while I have it? Thanks, everyone.
Enough power.
Bye.
My brief moment of power.